Why would we follow in the 21st century a first century rabbi? Why would we do that? A carpenter from Galilee who was crucified by Rome and was rejected by his own people. Why in the world would we do anything that this man would say? Why would we build our lives upon his values and his principles and his truths and his systems? Why would we even worship him? Well, these are big issues, and we're in this series called Who is Jesus? And welcome to NewPointe. We're glad that you're here because this is the most important question that I believe that any man, any woman, any person can answer. Who is Jesus? And the credibility of Christianity lays there. Matter of fact, the accuracy of Christianity lays there. It rises and falls on one individual, and his name is Jesus. And so if you're checking out of faith for the first time, hey, we're glad that you're joining us, okay? If you're reconsidering faith because maybe you walked away, maybe you didn't fully understand who Jesus was and you were looking to other things or other people other than him. Or maybe you're considering walking away. The only question that is pertinent for you and for me, if we're going to embrace faith, if we're going to be able to live out what we call faith, if we're going to embrace faith, or even walk away, we have to deal with who is Jesus. Because the biggest question is not, is there a God? There's always books out there that's going to give you your confirmation bias, okay? The real issue isn't if this book is without error. I could prove to you that it is if you gave me enough time, but we're in an instant gratification society, and so I don't have time to do that. But if we had time, I could walk you through of where you and I need to be able to consider everything in it seriously. But the question to ask when it comes to Christianity is this right here. Are Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John reliable accounts of actual events? That's where the rubber meets the road. Because if any of these are actual accounts, if any of these are reliable accounts, then what they say about Jesus of Nazareth is true. And if what they say about Jesus is true, then we need to set up. We need to listen. We need to be able to embrace everything that he calls us to. And so Jesus isn't a Bible story. He's in the Bible, but he isn't a Bible story. We've looked at a man named Luke, and Luke was a doctor. He's meticulous, and he was given the opportunity to document Jesus's life, and he did it through the letter called Luke. Also, the book of Acts you can read. And here's what he writes. He says, many have undertaken to draw up an account of the things that have been fulfilled among us. And what he's talking about, he's not talking about 50 years ago. He's not talking about hundreds of years ago in his lifetime. He's not talking about some other place. No, what he is saying is what I'm writing about has happened right here among us in my lifetime. In my lifetime. He goes on to say this. He says, just as they were handed down to us by those from the first were eyewitnesses, who from the first were eyewitnesses and servants of the word. And so Luke is saying that something extraordinary happened. And there have been many people who have written about it. And now he is stirred. Now he feels called to write it. And so he's talking about the fact that God has done something in the world. And what he has done is extraordinary, and it needs to be recorded. Needs to be recorded. And so he is saying, I'm documenting, I'm interviewing people, I'm taking down notes meticulously. And so what we need to understand is that Luke is not writing the Bible. He's writing a letter. He's documenting. The Bible would not come together for another 300 years. And so Luke continues, and he says this, with this in mind, since I myself have carefully investigated everything from the beginning, I too decided to write an orderly account for you, most excellent Theophilus. Wow. And so Theophilus was no doubt a first century person who was interested in Jesus, heard about Jesus, heard about his teaching. And so Luke says, so that you may know the certainty. You've heard bits and pieces, but I'm going to put it all together for you. I'm going to connect the dots for you of the things that you have been taught. And so Christianity makes an extraordinary claim. And the claim that it makes is this, that Jesus is God. We looked at that last week. And today what we want to look at is Jesus is fully man. He's both God and he is man. And Luke knew Mark, Luke knew John and Matthew. And so he's telling us today that Jesus is fully man. He's not half God and half man. He's not God pretending to be human. Jesus is fully God and fully man. This is different from every other faith in the world. No one even claims this, okay? And John describes the miracle of the incarnation with 5 simple words. Here's what he writes. The Word became flesh. The Word became flesh. The eternal Son of God stepped into human history and became one of us. Think of that. Wow. He goes on to write, he says, the Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. One translation would say, made his neighborhood among us. He entered our world. He experienced our limitation. He felt our emotions. He's faced our temptation. He experienced our pain. And ultimately, he died our death. He died in my place. He who knew no sin became sin so that you and I could be made whole, forgiven of our sins. And that matters because if Jesus is going to save humanity, he must become one of us. If he's going to identify with us, he must become one of us. And think about the way in which we normally think about God. We think of him being eternal, all-powerful, all-knowing, created everything, the great I am. He exists outside of time. And yet the message of Christianity is that this eternal, infinite God entered into his creation. Wow. Paul, the apostle who wrote half of the New Testament, he wrote letters because he encountered this Jesus. He writes this, who being in very nature God did not consider equality with God something to be used to his advantage. Wow. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness. That's incredible. You see, God didn't shout instructions from heaven. He didn't do that. He came down, and Jesus himself, God in the flesh, entered into the mess of humanity. He entered my mess. He entered your mess. And Jesus existed in two natures, which existed without confusion or division or separation. You say, I don't fully understand that. Join the crowd. I just know that to be true. And Jesus became 100% God, 100% man, 100% all the time. And so Jesus was not God indwelling a man. He was not appearing to be a man, okay? No, he was God. He was God. He combined the two into one nature. And so Jesus, as Paul says, limited himself and became fully man. But Jesus at the same time did not lessen himself. And so he remained God. Think of that. How do we know that? How do we know that Jesus was fully human? I want to help you with that today. First of all, we know that he experienced a human birth. Look at what Matthew writes. Matthew says, she will give birth to a son, and you are to give him the name of Jesus, because he will save his people from their sins. He not only had a human birth, he had physical growth. Look at what the writer writes here, Luke. Jesus grew in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and man. Now notice the four ways in which he grows. These are the four ways in which you and I should grow, okay? Intellectually, okay, but not only intellectually, he grew physically. Not only physically, he grew spiritually in his relationship with God, and he grew socially. He was good, he was great at relationships. And so we have a human birth, we have physical growth, we have human emotions. He experienced human emotions. This is incredible, okay? Look at what the writer writes here about his emotions, okay? He says he experienced grief. John writes this. He says, Jesus wept. He not only experienced grief, he experienced sorrow. Matthew writes these words, Jesus talking, my soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me. He not only experienced sorrow, he experienced amazement, all right? Matthew tells us this, that when Jesus heard this, he was amazed and said to those following him, truly I tell you, I have not found anyone in Israel with such great faith. Do you know that we can amaze Jesus? Unbelievable. Love, he experienced love. Here's what John writes. Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. Unbelievable, okay? He experienced distress. Here's what Mark writes about that. He began to be deeply distressed and troubled. He experienced compassion. Here's what Mark writes about that. Jesus moved with compassion. Wow, this is incredible. He experienced anger, all right? Mark says this, he looked around at them with anger, okay? So he experienced human emotions. Every emotion that you and I have experienced, Jesus experienced while he was here on earth. He also experienced human realities, okay? Let's look at these, all right? He was tired. John tells us Jesus was tired from his long trip, maybe long vacation, I don't know, all right? He was not only tired, he was hungry. Matthew records this. After fasting 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. I think we all would be, all right? He was thirsty. John tells us this. Jesus said, I am thirsty. So he was not only thirsty, he was also in agony, all right? Luke writes this. He was in such agony. He was not only in agony, but he was tempted, just like you and me, all right? He was tempted. It says Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted. And he was tempted in three ways, okay? Through pleasure, that's our appetites, okay? I want it, okay? We all are tempted through pleasure or through our appetites. And by the way, an appetite is never satisfied. That's where addiction comes in. We just want more and more and more. He was tempted to please others, to please the enemy, approval. And that comes from, I need them, I want them, I need them to like me. And then he was tempted through power, okay? Through power. I need to have it. And so Jesus was tempted in every way that you and I are tempted throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the lifetime. And then he also died. He died. He experienced death. Here's what Luke writes. Jesus is talking. Father, I commit my spirit to you. And with those words, he died. And so as a fully man, Jesus shows us that he understands our need. There's not a person here this morning that Jesus doesn't understand. Your wife doesn't understand you, your husband doesn't understand you, your mom and dad doesn't understand you, your best friend doesn't fully understand you, but there is one who understands you. His name's Jesus. Here's what the Hebrew writer writes. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize and understand our weaknesses and temptation. There is one who understands why you gave into that temptation. There is one who understands why you continually struggle with that weakness. But one who has been tempted, check this out, knowing exactly how it feels to be a human. Woo! In every respect as we are, yet without committing any sin. And so he understands the full extent. Because if you're like me, we have a tendency to give in to temptation. So we don't understand the full pressure of that temptation. Jesus does. And the writer isn't saying that Jesus understands our weaknesses intellectually. He is saying that Jesus has experienced everything that you and I have experienced, everything that a human being can experience. And he knows what it's like to be rejected. He knows what it's like to be disappointed. He knows what it's like to be misunderstood. He knows what it's like to be betrayed. He knows what it's like to be lonely. He knows what it's like to be overwhelmed. He knows what it's like to feel pressure. And Jesus knows what it's like to live in a body, just like you and me, to carry responsibilities, to experience pain, and to be tempted. And so the Hebrew writer is letting us know that we have one who understands us, okay? And then he goes on. He says, since we have someone who understands us, okay, let us then approach God's throne of grace with confidence so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need. He says, so in light of the fact that we have a high priest who is able to identify with us, our emotions, our experiences, our realities, he said we should approach God's throne with grace or with confidence so that we can find grace. Now, I find this very, very interesting because the prayer here is not to remove the circumstances. Okay, we pray that our circumstances would change. Nothing wrong with that. But this is praying a different type of prayer. This is praying, hey, you know what? Give me the grace, give me the strength, give me the perseverance, give me the ability, give me the wisdom to be able to walk through my trial, my temptation, my circumstances. And that's why we say, that's why I say, Jesus makes life better and he makes us better at life. Because even if the trial is not removed, even if the temptation is not removed, even if the trouble is not removed, he tells me, hey, you know what, Dwight? If you approach me, I will give you grace. And what is grace? Grace is power and strength that comes from God himself. He says, I can give you the ability to handle everything. Dwight, you don't need to be going around saying the devil made me do it. Y'all okay? You don't need to blame anybody. You don't need to be a victim. You don't need to give 3 reasons why you did this and why you didn't do that. You can be victorious if you'll come to me and experience my grace to be able to do that. And so Jesus gives us a personal invitation. Think of that, okay? He gives you and I a personal invitation, and it's not simply an invitation to believe. It's an invitation to follow him, to surrender to him, to live differently. Here's what he says, and Matthew records it. He says, come to me. Come to me. He doesn't say come to religion. He doesn't say come to church. Listen, religion will kill you. Religion will drain you. Religion will leave you empty. And what happens is many people mistake believing in Jesus and following Jesus and surrendering to Jesus as a religion. Religion means that you're still in control because you're trying to perform, you're trying to earn. It will leave you empty. It will dry you up. And the answer to our exhaustion isn't a better schedule. It isn't better discipline. It's not even better circumstances. The issue, okay, and the answer to your exhaustion is a person. His name's Jesus. You know, I know people take vacations and they say, I need a vacation, and you're back, and within 10 days you need another vacation. Or you take a sabbatical and you come back, and guess what? You need another sabbatical. You know why? Because you're not doing life right. You're not doing life right. And it'll never get right until you come to the one who can make it right, who can help you have life better and do life better. And so Jesus gives us an invitation. He says, come to me, all of you. Doesn't matter who you are. All of you who are weary and burdened. Wow. That includes all of us. And he's not speaking here theoretically, okay? Remember who Jesus is. He is fully man. And so you don't have to explain your exhaustion to him. You don't have to explain your pain, your hurt, your loss, your betrayal. He already understands it. And there's a difference between being tired and being burdened, okay? You can be tired just because you worked really, really, really hard. But you can also be tired because you're carrying things that God never intended for you to carry. The need to please everybody. I could help you a whole lot if you just quit pleasing everybody. The pressure to perform. The guilt from your past. The fear of the future. And the resentment that you have because you choose not to forgive. And Jesus is saying to you and me, come with your shame, come with other people's expectations, come with all of that, and I will offer you rest. Not from activity, we still gotta live, okay? He offers us rest, okay, from that which we were never meant to carry. And yet he doesn't promise a life of ease, okay? We live in a broken world, we live among broken people. Okay, so he goes on, and here's what he says, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. And so this is the one who's lived the life that you and I could never live. And the first step towards rest isn't stopping everything. You know, I just got to stop everything. No, it's coming to a person. And that person is Jesus, who makes life better, and he makes us better at life. And he says, and take my yoke. A yoke is something that you carry. And Jesus isn't, listen, you need to get this. Jesus isn't saying, follow me and you'll never have responsibilities again. No, Jesus wants you and I to be responsible. He'll give us the grace, he'll give us the strength, he'll give us the ability to do that. What he is saying is stop doing life your way. Stop doing life your way. The psalmist would say it like this, the way of the transgressor is hard. When you do life your way, it's hard. When you do marriage your way, it's hard. When you do parenting your way, it's hard. When you do finances your way, it's hard. When you do life your way, it's hard. Jesus continues and he says, and learn from me. Learn from me. I've been there. I've done that. I've been successful. And so there's more to believing in Jesus. There's learning from Jesus. That's what it means to follow him. I'm going to follow him. I'm going to walk in his footsteps. I'm going to learn how to do life from him. And Jesus continues and he says this, he says, and you will learn from me. He says, watch me, walk with me, learn my rhythms, accept my priorities, learn my responses, learn the way in which I do life. And so believing in Jesus is one thing, but following Jesus is completely another thing. That's why people deconstruct their faith, because they think that believing in Jesus is enough. It's not. Following Jesus is saying, teach me. I want to learn from you. I want to be able to do life the way in which you did it. Because my natural tendency is to go my own way. My natural tendency is to do what culture is telling me. My natural tendency is to follow my feelings. My natural tendency is to pursue my desires. And we do that in relationships. We do that with money. We do that with our sexuality. We do that with forgiveness and marriage and all of that. And this leads to a life that is weary. This leads to a life that is burdensome. This leads to a life that breaks us down, that makes us anxious. And Jesus is saying, if you'll come to me and if you'll learn from me, you'll begin to live life freely. You'll begin to live life freely and lightly. He goes on and he says this. He says, come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you what? I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your soul. He says, I'm gentle, I'm humble, I'm understanding, because I get you. Take advice from me and learn from me. And it's through a relationship. It's through knowing me and experiencing me. I've lived a life. But you know what it does, my friends? It calls you and I to be men and women of humility and to be able to say, Jesus, I need you. Jesus, I want you. But you know what we say? I need a break. I need a vacation. I need rest. And we need to learn something. Every single one of us needs to learn something. And that is, we need to learn from Jesus himself. That's what we do. Rest restores, okay? Listen, rest restores, learning transforms. And by the way, biblical rest is an act of trust. And what do I need rest for? My soul. What is my soul? My soul is where I make decisions. My soul is what integrates, what connects, what binds everything together about me. You know, today we have an issue with mental health. You know why we have an issue with mental health? Because our souls are wrecked. Our souls are unhealthy. Our souls are in turmoil. And Jesus said, if you'll come to me, you'll find rest for your soul. You see, Jesus doesn't just want to give you rest. He wants to teach you how to live at rest. What's the psalmist says? Thou prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Some of us here today, you let too many people mess up your life. And Jesus wants to give rest to your soul, that you know what? It doesn't matter what environment you're in. You're at peace. And he says, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Wow. Doesn't mean that there'll never be difficulty. Doesn't never mean that there'll never be hard times. Doesn't mean any of that. Jesus does not promise an easy life. Matter of fact, when you follow Jesus, many times it becomes inconvenient. What he promises is a better way to do life, a better way to do marriage, a better way to do family, a better way to do your finances, a better way to do parenting. And it's a way that doesn't destroy you. See, when your soul is destroyed, when your soul is destructive, then what happens is it leads you and I to destroy and destruct the very things in our life that are most precious. So many times in our life, Jesus doesn't remove the problem. That's not the issue. He teaches you and I to live life in spite of our problems so that they don't destroy us. So Jesus doesn't promise to make our life trouble-free. He promises to be available to help you and I do life. Jesus is fully man. He understands my needs. Ready for this? Jesus is fully God. He can meet my needs. Wow. Unbelievable. If you weren't here last week, I encourage you to listen to it. That's why you need to be here every week. Every single week. Because these messages build upon one another. Okay? And if you're not here, if you can't be here, I understand it, but at least watch online. Because you know what? Let me tell you, the stakes are high. Your marriage is in the balance. Your family is in the balance. Your finances is in the balance. The stakes are incredibly high. And there is one who has done life, and his name is Jesus. He's gentle and he's humble. And he's asking you to take his yoke, his burden, and he'll teach us how to live. I want you to listen to this song. Just sit where you're at all across our campuses, and I want this song to wash over you. It's Jesus Be the Name. Who is Jesus? He's the great I am. He's whatever you need. Jesus, be the name. I need peace. Jesus, be the name. I need grace. Jesus, be the name. I need wisdom. Jesus, be the name. I need a friend. Jesus, be the name. I need a counselor. So I want you to listen to this. Would you pray with me? God, we thank you today for who you are. Wow. That you would take on the form of one of us so that you could fully identify in ways that nobody else could. It's really hard to believe. So we thank you for people like Luke and Mark and John and Matthew who documented your life here on earth so that we didn't just have to have faith in faith, but we could hear your story from eyewitnesses who walked with you, who lived with you. And we thank you today for who you are. God, I say today, what a friend I have in Jesus. All my sins and cares to bear. What a privilege to carry everything. My sin, my hurts, my struggles, my fears, my anxiousness to you. Jesus, be the name that I need in my life and in my friend's life. And I pray it in that name, Jesus, which is above all names. Amen.